civil and political rights, or these things are, in order to specify these things, you need to have a list of the goods that people care about. And so Hooft, Liao, and Renzo argues that even if you adopt non-instrumentalism, you still need to have a reference to interest. And this is not inconsistent. I mean, you can have both. Now, with Tasiulas and Nigel, and also Benar, Leif Benar, and others, they think that there are good reasons to believe that relying on moral status only will never deliver the list of human rights we are accustomed to. So that's the point I was making. With absolutely no idea of what matters to humans and left with the bare notion that they possess a status, we will never be able to cover the numerous areas of human interest protected by human rights, from civil and political liberties to access to food, shelter, bodily integrity, and so on. They continue, even Hobbes' state of nature could be compatible with human rights if we were to conceive human rights as merely in terms of status. If the constraint on social design is merely that of attributing humans a high status, in the state of nature of Hobbes, all individuals have unlimited freedom as a law of nature, which is tantamount to recognizing to everybody a rather high status, after all. So they are saying without reference to human interests, you will never get to human rights as we know them. So both things are necessary, reference to human dignity and the reference to human interests. Okay, what can we say about this two-tiered approach? Well, what I would say, this is a point that is just my personal opinion, I think that this compatibilism, I mean, you can put together non-instrumentalism and instrumentalism, conflates two levels in a foundation of human rights that should not be conflated. On the one level, there is a question of what provides normative force to the idea that humans have a status that entitles them to certain basic rights. So let's call this the foundation stricto sensu. So the question of what makes the interest we have in something worth protecting. The second question, seems to me, is a technical question that depends on historical circumstances. So what are the things we need, right? So the first question says, what is it about human beings that entitles them to have their needs fulfilled, or at least their basic needs fulfilled? I think this is the only question that we should ask ourselves in a philosophical foundation of human rights. What is it? What is the grounds of the normativity of any things that protects our needs? On the other hand, there is the almost technical question of what are our needs? That's in between an empirical and an historically based question that tells us that today in this life, in this society, for example, we need a certain fairly sophisticated education to have a decent life, in the way in which perhaps 200 years ago was not the case, maybe not, but let's assume that this is the case. So, what I don't like about this compatibilist approach is that they seem to conflate these two levels of a foundation. I agree with them that you will never be able to get to the list of human rights to accommodate human rights as we know them with no reference to the interest that human beings have. I agree with that claim. I disagree if that is meant to say that interests play a primary role in explaining why human rights are obligatory for us. Because the explanation of that fact is exclusively on the shoulder of the other question, of the other pillar that compatibilists recognize, which is why we have a status, why we have a certain ground to say that we have human dignity. So, yeah, I hope I was clear enough about this point, but it is an important point because compatibilism, this kind of syncretic approach, let's put together instrumentalism and non-instrumentalism because this is going to get us close to what we're looking for, is an appealing theory, but I think it hides a deep and serious conflation and mistakes in the business of a foundation. Let me finish by mentioning two other non-instrumentalist positions. I will talk about the political interpretation tomorrow, there is no more time. The first one is the one proposed by Alan Gewirth. I have already mentioned Gewirth as a sort of antecedent to Griffin. Gewirth proposes a sort of transcendental argument in which one starts from the idea that we are all purposive agents, we all act for some good that we consider as worth pursuing. Now, since freedom and well-being are necessary conditions for the pursuit of any end, it follows that we are constrained to be interested in freedom and well-being, which is equivalent to say that we want freedom and well-being of all to be protected through human rights. The second non-instrumentalist position I wanted to mention is that by Catherine Flickschuh, colleague of London School of Economics, a contemporary thinker. She has a similar foundation that has a similar transcendental flavor. She thinks that human rights are constraints we cannot help embracing if we accept the task of designing rules for others whom we have no permission to coerce. So, we are constrained to care about human rights because we need human rights in order to design rules for coercing other people over which we have no authority, so other individuals like us. Okay, well, I mean, both approaches seem to go back to the original problem of the agency account. Remember the first approach in the instrumentalist school we were mentioning. Appealing to agency and to the conditions of its possibility will never take us even close to what we usually include in human rights, as shown by the example of the slave as a fully purposive agent that I was giving you. And regarding Flickschuh, I think she begs the whole foundational question by assuming that legislator ought to deliver laws under the constraints that she imagines. So, I mean, what we are looking for is an explanation of why these constraints are obligatory, why the legislator should have these constraints, not the fact that legislators are to design laws according to these constraints. So, I think that Flickschuh is led to this question-begging strategy by a certain interpretation of the metaphysics of morals, but we don't need to go into the details of this. So far, leaving the political view for tomorrow, I hope that I've shown you and convinced you to a certain extent that the instrumentalist school makes the fundamental mistake of conflating interest and rights. The non-instrumentalist school does not make this mistake. Actually, it starts from the recognition that you need some reference to status and human dignity in order to show why we have to take into consideration, moral consideration, the interest of human beings, but has the huge problem of not explaining to us why we have this status. Remember Nagel's point, don't ask me why we have human dignity, because we have to stop somewhere. We have to stop at one point in our foundation, otherwise we keep on going in an infinite regress. And it may be the case, is my reaction, but then you should be honest and say there is no foundation of human rights. I mean, the whole foundational approach question is misplaced, because we will never be able to give a foundation of human rights. If all there is in a foundation is an appeal to human dignity, right, that's exactly the strategy of the documents, right? The Universal Declaration, the treaties, they all start with the assumption that humans have dignity and that human rights derived from this dignity are an expression of this dignity. Okay, fine. But then there is no philosophical work. Okay, so let me stop here for today. Tomorrow we'll see the political views, and then we will dig into the notion of human dignity as much as possible.